Hanging with the little people.
Hanging with the little people.
Incredible though.
All right then. I'm going to call this September 12th meeting of the Expanded Budget Committee to order. The same comments that I made last Thursday apply tonight. Let's please be crisp and stay on point. Lots of people to hear from. I don't know if Lisa or Norma have any introductory remarks. If not, we will go directly to the transportation planning presentation, which can be found on page 4-205 of the books. Is anyone here to present? All right, if Dwight's not here, then I guess what we can do is move on to TCAT, because I do see Scott Vanderpool is here. And we'll just let Dwight present after Scott does. And the TCAT presentation can be found on page 5-32 of your budget books.
Okay, I guess we were ready to start.
Yes,
Thank you.
please.
Thank you, Deborah. Okay, so Scott Vanderpool, General Manager here at TCAT. I will provide a quick TCAT overview and then turn it over to my partner, Julie Ellis Grove, to talk about TCAT's 2023 budget. So next slide. So adopting, let's start by taking a look at some of our challenges and initiatives over the past year. One of our biggest challenges that all transit agencies are currently facing is a bus operator shortage. In fact, it's recently been labeled as a nationwide crisis, and TCAT is no different. The parts supply chain issue is also a concern, and there are many days when several TCAT buses are sitting in our garage waiting for parts. Supply chain issues and driver shortages have made it hard to provide service as intended and have forced us to reduce our service levels. And this kind of brings us to our next topic, our next slide, ridership challenges. So here's a look at where we stand from a ridership standpoint. The elbow at the very bottom of the screen in April of 2020 shows where we were just after the pandemic started. And the black line, which represents 2022, shows that ridership has started to tail off, mostly due to what I just mentioned and due to the service reductions that we are forced to make. So our ridership is now stands at about 61 to 65% of where we were pre-pandemic in 2019. So next slide. TCAT continues to work on several great initiatives where we were recently awarded an $8.7 million grant for additional electric buses and infrastructure. This award will keep us on target for our goal of an all battery electric fleet by 2035. Our 10-year TDP, or Transportation Development Plan, that I talked about last year at this meeting has really been initiated, however, to some extent on the back burner, or at least parts of it, due to our bus operator shortage. Also, our T-Connect on-demand project has been suspended until we get more operators into the mix. So despite the setbacks, TCAT will continue to work towards on-demand, green initiatives, and community-related equity projects. Next slide. I really like the idea of strength in community, and the folks at TCAT are so lucky to have community support for everything we are trying to do, whether it's reduction of carbon emissions or support of on-demand and finding transportation solutions. The NYSERDA Clean Transportation Prize Grant has been a major project for TCAT and other people across the county over the course of 2022. If awarded, this grant will bring $7 million in transportation solutions, specifically transportation equity solutions to our community. And it's been a TCAT-led collective effort from many county organizations. Next slide. As previously mentioned, TCAT was awarded a low or no emission grant. We now have funding for 10 additional buses. 6 of those buses are 40-foot and 4 are smaller electric vans, 22 passenger electric vans for on demand, and some of our, maybe our rural routes that may not have as much ridership as some of our heavier routes. So we don't expect delivery of the larger buses until late 2023 or early 2024. So I will now turn it over to our controller, Julie Ellis Grove, who's going to walk you through our 2023 budget. Julie.
Thank you, Scott, for the introduction. As Scott mentioned, my name is Julie Ellis Grove. I am the controller for TCAT. This first slide that you're seeing is an overall summary of TCAT's revenues and expenditures. TCAT will be asking for an 8% increase in funding from our underwriters for 2023. This ask is due to many factors, including increased expenses due to inflation, fuel prices, etc. We will get into more detail as we go through the next several slides. The first set of numbers represent the 2021 draft figures. We have not completed our 2021 audit yet, so these are still listed as draft figures. The next column is the 2022 operating budget that was approved last year. And then this is then compared to our 22 operating budget projections using our current July 2022 figures. Finally, the last column on here represents 2023 proposed draft budget, and we'll go into detail regarding our assumptions and projections for the revenue and expenditures amounts. So first, we're going to look at revenue. This slide represents the revenue totals by categories and compares each of these categories for that 2021 actual draft form to the 2022 projected as of the July figures, and then the 2023 projection for the budgeted revenues. We're going to go into each one in detail. So first are the projected passenger revenues. We used a projected ridership of 863,000 revenue generating riders that was provided by our planning department. And we took those projected ridership rates by the average price per ride, which is $1.18, to calculate what we think our new passenger revenues will be for 2023. The next is our Cornell fares. So our memorandum of understanding with Cornell was renewed at the end of June 2022 for a 1-year period with no increase over 2021. Please note that the Cornell is on a different fiscal year than TCAT is. Their fiscal year runs from July to June of the next year, while ours is from January through December. So the new MOU will run from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th of 2023. We're not sure what's going to happen from July to December of 2023, so we kept the rate flat for the end of the 2023 period. The next revenue category is our payroll protection program. This was related to COVID and it was a one-time occurrence. It's represented in 2021, but we do not anticipate we will receive this again in 2022 or in 2023. The next category is STOA, or the Statewide Mass Transportation Operating Assistance Program. We were informed by New York State Department of Transportation that they think the hold harmless will stay in effect for organizations that have not reached pre-pandemic ridership rates. So the figure of that $5.9 million in 2023 represents a hold harmless total. STOA is normally calculated based on the previous year ridership and mileage at $1.15 for each mile and 68 cents for each rider. The amount you see in 2023 here for the $4.398 million under federal and state assistance is used to balance our budget each year. We use the federal and state funding to offset any deficits we have in terms of our expenses over our revenues. So we are looking at some of our unallocated American Rescue Plan Act money, or ARPA funds, as well as some of the coronavirus response and relief supplemental appropriations, or CRRSA funds that may still be available at the end of 2022 to try to make up that $4.398 million. For the underwriter share, we are proposing an 8% increase this year to help cover some of our projected expenses. This would bring the total from our underwriters up to $3,068,972. And that equates to around an increase of $75,000 per underwriter over what was asked for in 2022. The mortgage recording tax total of $1.3 million for 2023 is based on information that we recently received from the county. So finally, under the revenue section, we slightly decreased in our other revenues. This amount is made up of our gadabout rent, our gadabout repair and maintenance, our advertising, and other miscellaneous revenue. We have been working with Cayuga Radio Group very successfully and have seen positive results for our advertising revenue. So next, we're going to go into our expenditures. This first slide represents our expenditure categories, and we're going to go into more detail on each of these on the next slides. Please note that the projected 2022 numbers as of July compared to the 2023 projections show an increase of approximately $2.6 million. So this graph represents these expenditure categories similar to the revenues, where we compare the 2021 actual, which is in a draft form, to the 2022 projected totals as of July, to projections for 2023. So the first category is our employee wages. The wages have been increased. However, as we are currently in union contract negotiations, we will not be sharing the percentage that they have been increased by at this time. This figure also includes multiple new positions for TCAT in order to help build our infrastructure so we can meet service needs going forward. Some of these new positions include a full-time recruiter, a new trainer, a weekend supervisor, and another dispatcher. And we do have a few other positions that will be announced moving forward. The next category is our employee benefits. We reached out to the insurance agents for estimates on increase in health insurance and workers' compensation. We were told to anticipate a 15% increase in health insurance and a 9% increase in our workers' compensation. We will also have more eligible employees in our 401k match next year. TCAT matches 10% after 2 years of employment for 401k. So given an increase in the wages along with these new people coming in, this will also affect our employee benefits for next year. The gadabout contract is pretty much the same. It's projected to increase slightly up to $600,000 in 2023. So for fuel, we researched online and found a projected amount for oil prices. And from that, we got the estimate of $3.62 per gallon of diesel for next year. We took that against our projected miles of 1.5 million projected miles, less what we anticipate for our electric bus mileage, which is around 245,000 miles. We average around 4.04 miles per gallon of diesel on our buses. So using a projected amount of 328,000 gallons of diesel needed, times that projected cost of the 362, we come up with the estimated cost of fuel. This also includes a $3,000 a month figure for our fluids for each month. Our parts are projected to increase around 65,000 in 2023 based on the 2021 and 2022 totals. We're still finding it very hard to find some of our parts, and we are also still seeing an increase due to inflation on the cost of what our parts are costing us. We reached out to Haler, Freyer & Kuhn, who handle our insurance policies, to get an estimate on the increase in our vehicle insurance. They let us know that the estimated cost would go up by around 20% for next year for vehicle insurance. So the final category there is other expenses. They're estimated to decrease from 2022 to 2023 based on some of the projections as of July 2022. So we are therefore anticipating a $4.398 million deficit in our budget for 2023, which, as discussed earlier, we'll be looking to cover with some of our ARPA and our CARISA funding as well. So next, we're going to move on to the 2023 capital draft budget. We have included projects that we know need to be completed. This includes our driver lounge upgrades, our garage floor repairs, a new farebox system, a server room upgrade to accommodate a new two-way radio system that has been put into place. So based on our funding, this would result in a proposed local funder share of $95,000 for 2023. As shown in the capital budget, listed here are TCAT's priority projects for 2023, which totaled the $2.4 million. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Scott to go over some future considerations.
Thanks, Julie. TCAT is really concentrating on some very important goals since the pandemic. Wellness and support of our employees has been even more critical. And I think Julie mentioned some of the support that we're bringing on with additional admin help. Thanks to our team and their efforts in grant writing, we continue to get financial support needed to keep us on track to reach our carbon emission goals. We continue to meet regularly with community groups regarding equity and inclusion to find solutions that will help our underserved community members. Pandemic-related issues and a nationwide driver shortage have temporarily reduced our service levels, yet TCAT remains optimistic and will continue to work hard to support our community, continue to provide safe and reliable transportation. So on behalf of Julie and all of us at TCAT, thank you so much for all of your support. So I guess we'll entertain some questions.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Julie. Do we have questions? Mike Lane?
Well, that was very succinct and a lot of information. I've missed not having the three-party meetings in the summer about your proposed budgets, where we had a chance to hear from you and talk. So this information is very useful as far as I'm concerned. You talked about service reductions, and we're hearing from at least I'm hearing from constituents about that. One, not necessarily from my constituents, but one I'm hearing a lot about is the reduction in the late night bus services, particularly up to IC. And I wonder, apparently we're stranding students downtown late at night, and wondered what's being thought about for trying to restore those services.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I may not have heard all the information that you have, Mike. Appreciate that. And I will, after this meeting and perhaps tomorrow or the next day, I'll be talking to our service development manager to see where we are in that process. But I know that the service reductions are temporary. We hope to bring service back to several areas sooner than later. Our situation with drivers right now is just, it hasn't been sustainable, and drivers had been working over the course of the last year and a half, 6 days a week, because we are an essential service and we have to cover that, the schedule that's out there. So reducing the service really made it a little more sustainable so our drivers aren't working on their days off and being forced to work on their days off. So I will address that, Mike. I don't have a definitive answer right now, but I'll address the issues with the Route 11 and IC and the folks in that area. And let me try to get back to you and perhaps others that are in this meeting.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay, I have questions from Veronica, Randy, and Annie.
Thank you. 2 questions. One, for your capital project, I saw it looked like the Farebox project was planning to use only federal funds and others was using a mix of things. Can you explain why that is or how that works?
So right now for our Farebox program, that's something that we know is kind of like a absolutely needs to be done. Right now our Farebox system is kind of failing. So we do have ARPA funds, which is the American Rescue Plan Act funds that are readily available for that. So because that kind of takes our top priority in our project, that's why we're using those funds first, which doesn't require a match. So the other funds would require a match. Those would come out of our 5307 or 5339, which we have to go and apply for, which might take a little bit longer. So we're doing it based on our priority projects.
Okay, thank you. Do you have an estimate on how much revenue has been lost due to non-functioning fare boxes? Like, I rode the bus for free this morning, but that's not.
Yeah, we're trying to come up with those figures. We believe it's, it could be between $40,000 and $60,000 a month right now, because we have a large number of buses that have fare boxes that aren't working. So this is a really big priority for us to get an RFP worked on, and well, I guess it's pretty much done, but get that out there and get this fare box situation taken care of.
Thank you. And sorry, I wasn't counting that. My other question is maybe for whoever made the budget book. The numbers I'm looking at under TCAT in the book I don't get how they match up with the ones in the presentation.
I can
What am I looking at? Yeah.
perhaps take a stab at that. So in my proposal to the legislature for the budget retreat, I had included a 3% increase to supported agencies, including TCAT. So that was built into TCAT's budget request. And then when we met with TCAT, that was where we were, that's what we had included. And then they have since come back to partners asking for the 8% increase, as well as the increase in the capital. So what you see before you is essentially the over target. That's the balance of that's the additional 5% to make up for the 8% increase, as well as the capital. Does that make sense? Is that your question?
That makes sense. That wasn't really my question. I guess I'm wondering what's going on the lines about federal aid, state aid, local revenues. But if this is too in the weeds, I can ask out of the meeting.
It's the county's portion. So what they're showing you is their total budget. This is what the county provides.
Okay, what does it mean to have a county portion of federal revenue?
I would imagine you divide it by 3, right? The total.
That's a good question. The county's revenue. So I don't know whether Scott or Julie have. I mean, we show the federal aid that comes into the county and the state aid that comes into the county that supports transportation services. But they also have money that comes directly to TCAT. And you guys correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but that's the way I understand the way your budget works and ours.
And that's one function of Dwight's office.
That's correct.
Is that he gets those federal grants, and then the
He's
county
on
just.
actually, so he could probably
Yeah.
answer the question much better.
Yeah, TCAT isn't, we are a subrecipient of the county. So we don't necessarily, we can't go to the Fed and apply for funds directly. The county does that on our behalf, but we also have other revenue streams that we can get directly.
Right, okay, thank you.
It's rocket science, man. Funding TCAT's rocket science. So, don't feel badly if it's not immediately apparent. Okay, Randy.
Yes, I'd agree with that. So don't feel bad, Veronica. A little confused by the numbers too. You mentioned that you're funding your deficit now with funds from ARPA and other things. How long is that sustainable? I mean, if you're short this year, what's it going to look like next year and the year after that?
So we've done some projections out for a few years, and really this is only going to sustain us for about another 2 years as we continue to run in a deficit. So that's really where we kind of lean on underwriters, our 3 underwriters that's why we have an ask this year, because we have projected out that within a couple of years, we will not have that ARPA funding or that CRISA funding. It will be used up.
Okay, thank you. And also on the mortgage recording tax revenue, is that a county policy or is that direct? Okay.
I think they get 85% of the MRT. Yeah, that's just the way we do it.
Okay, I thought so. I just want to make sure. And the last thing is the 15% healthcare cost and 20% insurance increase seems high And I know that hopefully our counties aren't like that. So just want to make that statement. So
That's a good point. I was curious because I know that the consortium increases are substantially lower than that. Is it not possible for TCAT to participate on the consortium?
I believe you have to have the status of a municipality to part,
Okay,
unfortunately.
thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I have Annie and then Lee.
Scott and Julie, thanks for the presentation. I know you're trying to juggle quite a lot of things, as folks said. So I have two questions. One is when you talked about the fare boxes not being able to charge people consistently right now, I would say, if that's accurate, please, if not, please correct me. Does that, in addition to revenue you're missing, is that also affecting your reimbursement that you get?
It doesn't so much. It affects our customer service, which is important. And you're right, it is inconsistent right now. But the STOA reimbursement, we have an option to use our automatic passenger counters, which are counters through the door system. So the STOA and other reimbursements that we have are based on data collection. So our data collection, we can do something to supplement the data collection through our automatic passenger counters on the doors that will provide that information to the federal government and to the state government so that we do have the proper information on the passengers that are boarding so that we can, provide those figures to get reimbursed.
Okay, that's great. So the second question, as you know, you've heard, folks have come, Fare Free Tompkins have I know engaged with you folks, and they've engaged with the county as well. And so one question I just wanted to say for the record here, would going ahead with changing out the fare boxes and updating those negatively affect you pursuing going fare free?
I think the answer at least for me is no. And our plan and the whole fare box plan, we've talked with all the vendors that we've worked with, and we can bring in the fare boxes at a 3 to 5 year contract with these vendors. And that'll give us time because we need time. We've got a driver shortage. We know we can't do it right now, right? We have a driver shortage. We got to figure out the financial end of this, whether it's even possible. So there's a lot of things that we have to hash out and work out internally to try to figure out this fare free. And everybody at TCAT is in favor of it. It's just trying to figure out how to do it. So that's going to buy us time, basically 3 to 5 years with this new fare box system, give us time to try to figure out the fare free situation and make it work. So I hope that answered your question, Ann.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for all you do. And again, as I said last year, thanks for sending an electric bus to the Trumansburg Firepersons Parade again.
Okay. I think we got your picture there, Annie. Thank you.
Yeah, and in case anybody's wondering what the driver shortage has to do with the ability to go fare free, one of the benefits of being fare free is, of course, an increase in ridership, which results in an increase in STOA aid, which helps offset to some extent the loss of fare box revenue. But currently, with the driver shortage that TCAT is unfortunately experiencing, there's no way that TCAT could at this time take advantage of the increased demand and the increased ridership. So that's the calculus.
Yeah, we've done, thanks for that, Deborah. We have done some, a lot of research on this in other transit agencies like they've went fare free in North Carolina and Chapel Hill. And it's normally around a 30% increase in ridership. And that would just kind of be a real tough ask right now for us to go fare free and bring on 30% more.
We need double-decker buses, Scott.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we'll work on that. Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for Lee, sorry.
You might have partially answered it, Scott. The capital program upgrades to facilities this next year, are they going to be all expensed in one year, or is it a multi-year payment for those? Which, just begged the question for me about the target increase rather than a one-time.
Thanks, Lee. Julie, any?
We are hoping to get it all done within 2023. A lot of that right now, of course, will depend on selecting our vendor, doing our RFP. We have to go through all of those steps before we do that. But, really for retention and with trying to draw drivers into TCAT, we think that this is a priority project. So we are going to be trying to complete that within 2023.
Okay, I may return to that later in the budget process. Thanks.
All right, anything else? Okay, in that case, seeing none, thank you very much, Scott and Julie, and have a pleasant rest of your evening. And we will detour back to Dwight for a report on our transportation unit.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And that's on page 4-205 of your budget book. Hi, Dwight.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Oh, wonderful. Oh. I'm sharing my screen. I assume you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. My name's Dwight Mengel. I'm the Chief Transportation Planner. I'm at the Department of Social Services, but I have my own budget, so that is what we're here to talk about tonight. Let me go. The recommended budget has an increase over 2022, an increase of 28% in expenditure and revenue. And what I'm here to talk about is the reason for this, and then get into some specifics of the program and how it's evolving. So, staffing, influences. During 2023, I intend to retire. And so I need to be replaced, and there would be two positions that would do that. There's a administrative services coordinator and a management trainee for my position. Both of these staff need to be recruited and trained. And a lot of that training will really need to be done locally because we need to reorganize how we do work and do this work. And one thing, when there's new people coming on, it's an opportunity to reorganize work and reorganize how information is managed. So why do I bring this up? I bring this up because I was fortunate in 1982 to purchase the first microcomputer used in county government. And I won't say that my filing hasn't evolved since then, but it is not necessarily compatible for other people to use. We need to have some, I think, some information science applied to the information that we have amassed over the last 40 plus years. Second thing I want to talk about is our federal triennial review, which is a process that is still underway. So what is it? Why is it important? Triennial implies every 3 years. It's been 4 years because of 2020. And the federal government, the Federal Transit Administration hires consultants to review the county's compliance with 22 program areas. I attached a link to the manual in case you're interested in seeing what this is all about. The manual is very well organized, but it's over 600 pages. We are now in the process of, we're nearing the end of the 2022 review. This week, there's a presentation on the draft of the draft report, and then there will be a period of time before the final report is issued. And we will have opportunities to cure some of the issues that will be identified. I just want to say quickly is that between 2018 and 2022, the FTA implemented and intensified the type of regulatory oversight we need to apply to TCAT and the gadabout. And this requires a lot of written documentation on both TCAT and gadabout's compliance. And there's a lot of work that we will need to sort out, and a lot of policies, a lot of new policies the county will need to write. And it will all need to be done. We're probably looking at a 3 to 4 or 5 month time frame. And the acceptability of what's presented will be, it will be reviewed and approved by the Federal Transit Administration. And the last just thing here is that I've done triennial reviews since 1996, and this is the one where the extended documented oversight in all of the program areas will require a lot of creativity and a lot of thinking about how to manage information and documentation, because we are going to have to report how well we are succeeding in implementing new policies. And so there's a lot of work here. That explains why there's an administrative services coordinator being added here. When we get into this more, and I will say 4 or 5 months from now, we may need to revisit some other additional staffing to complete this work. So going ahead, grants. We are really quite fortunate right now. Our regular formula programs have increased by over $1 million of what they used to be. And that funding looks like it is stable for up through the next 3 or 4 years. We will be applying for a formula grant, rural formula grant from NISDOT, probably later this fall when NISDOT announces the grant is open. It won't be awarded until next year. the amount of funding we're looking at is probably around 2.1 or $2 million. It depends upon what TCAT's looking for, really. And so that amount will need to be put into the 2023 budget too. We apply for competitive grants for TCAT. Anytime they compete, they put the initial grant in terms of the competitive phase. And what we do is when they are awarded a grant by the Federal Transit Administration, then it is our role to reapply in the regular FTA grant system to get the grant under contract. So that is what we do relating to competitive funding. There we have received in general about $1.2 million per year in state transit capital funding, which TCAT uses. And we are we're always looking for new funding and basically for technical assistance for projects. Some of them involve TCAT and others involve other services, volunteer transportation, and other types of services. Moving on, this is second to last slide. Programs. Just wanted to list 5 programs that we have. I contacted Gadabout today to find out what their status was of their IT project, and it's in a 5-month system testing mode right now to become operational in March of 2023, and everybody's looking forward to having this function. It completely revolutionizes and simplifies and enables opportunity for ridership development and growth for Gadabout and their customers. So it's a real game changer for how Gadabout is going to be able to operate. Second thing is that we do have our Mobility as a Service pilot. Our development has been underway since the fourth quarter of 2021. And we have and this is something I'll talk in a different meeting to give you some more information about it. But we're looking to begin our pilot in January 2023. Way to go, as I hope you know, but if not, just go to way2go.org. It's a community mobility education outreach by Cornell Cooperative Extension and 211. We do have a special community mobility program between ITCTC and Tompkins County, where we support community organizations that provide volunteer transportation and a lot of training for individuals, people with disabilities, bikes, pedestrians, route planning, and other guidance for a riding TCAT. Well, you may ask, why are we doing that? Well, we have a lot of visitors and a lot of people who move into our community every August, many of them coming from overseas, and they need to know, to understand the environment of being a pedestrian or biking and how to do things safely. And we also need to give support for people with disabilities. So that's why we have this program. And lastly, I'll say that we have monthly meetings of agencies and providers in the county's coordinated transportation planning meetings. So with that, we'll go full-time equivalent. We're increasing from 1 to 3. So that is good news, I hope. Looking forward to it. And that's my contact info. And with that, I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Dwight. Does anybody have questions for Dwight? Mike Lane?
I don't have questions for Dwight. Dwight, that was a nice presentation. But I do want folks to know that at the F&I meeting on Thursday, we've invited Dwight to come in and give us an overview of bus service in Tompkins County, going back quite a ways, right through TomTran and into TCAT. And that's going to happen very early in our meeting. We meet at 9 o'clock on Thursday. So if any of you'd like us to join us by Zoom or otherwise, we'd be glad to have you. Dwight has a wonderful set of photographs, which he shared with me, and I hope at some point he'll share them with the full legislature.
Okay, thank you.
Mike? Anyone else? Okay, seeing no questions, we want to thank you, Dwight, and congratulate you on your impending retirement. We will miss you, but I'm sure that you're going to have a lot of fun going forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, then, moving on to planning, our Department of Planning and Sustainability, including our tourism program. So we're going to welcome Katie and Nick. Where are you going, Katie? Okay. And we just wanted to be sure you didn't leave.
Dominic tells me to do.
Okay, and this presentation can be found on page 4-158 of your budget books.
Hi, everybody. While we get the slide presentation up, just wanted to present to you. Tonight, we have Joan Jurgwich in the back at the table there, who is our budget guru, planning administrator. Megan McDonald, the deputy, is on Zoom, and Nick Hemholt is here with me to talk about the tourism program when we get to that portion of the budget. So great, if you could go to the next slide. And Nick's helping me with tech support, so that's always good too. So the major influences on our budget, really almost all of it is salary and fringe. And the rest of it is deeply influenced by grants and programs that the legislature funds for us through over target requests. So for the 2022-2023 time period, that deals with the Resiliency and Recovery Grant, Blue Way Trail Grant, Business Energy Advisors Program, Code Administration Study, Broadband Study, and Traffic Calming and Control Study. They all have different timing for the revenues and expenditures, and it makes it difficult to compare our budget year over year. And you can see that in the recommended budget that is right up there. So most of that fluctuation from year to year is because of this, trying to match up grants and over target requests. This one's a little bit confusing. So let me try to explain. We had 11 positions in 2022, but not all of the positions were in our target funding. So this year we asked for an over target request, and it was recommended by Lisa to include the Chief Sustainability Officer position in our target funding, as well as 200 hours worth of a project assistant, which is the 0.1. So brings it up to 11 FTE. And then we have 5 over target requests for you this year. The first one deals with the Chief Sustainability Officer. This was slated, 2023 was going to be year 3 of a 3-year legislator initiated OTR that was begun in 2021. We are hoping that it could be brought into the target budget just to give some consistency and a long-term commitment. I just wanted to highlight for you all a few things that Terry Carroll's been able to accomplish just since June of 2021. He worked with the legislature to revise the green fleet policy. He's established a fleet replacement plan for departments and is developing the 2023-25 capital budget for vehicle replacement and leading vehicle procurement, which apparently is just a nightmare if you're looking for a car these days, and to do it for a whole county is a ton of work. And then he's also been working with our staff in planning to write and submit comments on the CLCPA draft scoping plan, which we shared with you all. He's been working with Arel on the green facilities work to establish phase 1 of the capital project, including he put together an application for $2.3 million in grant funding to support that work. He applied for with administration and received $128,000 in congressionally directed spending for solar powered charging stations, and is in the process of applying for $37,500 in electric vehicle rebate grant funding. And finally, he's been working with Dominic on branding county sustainability operations so the public knows more what we're up to. The next over target request has to do with broadband planning. And this money was funded for this year, and we have entered into a contract with ECC Technologies to work on data analysis, identifying funding sources, giving us a clear direction on how we should be proceeding for expanding broadband in Tompkins County. We just got this contract under, in August. And so we don't really know exactly what this money would be used for next year, but we feel like it would give us the flexibility and ability to be nimble when a grant opportunity arises, because it's very expensive to submit grant applications for broadband, and they could help us do that quickly. I will say in the past, we have been allocated money, for example, for another broadband study that we didn't do. So it's not like we're going to spend the money if we don't need to. So if we're able to have that flexibility, that would be very helpful to us. The third one has to do with the Municipal Housing Affordability and Infrastructure Fund. This is a continuation of a program that was funded as a 3-year OTR, the last year of which is this year. And so we are hoping that it could be extended again for an additional 3-year OTR. We feel like there have been some modest successes with it, and we feel like the pandemic really interrupted the ability to really test that program. I've talked to you in the past about two projects that were completed that really did leverage significant funding in the town of Lansing and in the village of Dryden. And I just wanted to update you on another couple that might be of interest to you. The town of Danby received an award to conduct a septic-oriented development hamlet center study, and we awarded them $10,000 to do that. They wound up actually finding other funds that they could use to do that work, so they did not tap into that money. They came back a year later and asked for money to hire a grant writing consultant to prepare a housing-focused grant program application. So we awarded them $5,000. That was completed, and they did submit an application for Community Development Block Grant Award for $500,000 to provide rehab assistance for low-income homeowners to make code, health, and safety, weatherization, and energy efficiency repairs to their homes. and I don't do testimonials very often, but we had an unsolicited testimonial from David West, the town planner for the town of Danby. And he said, I wanted to send my personal thanks to the county for making this possible. There is simply no way I could possibly pursue a grant of this magnitude without the expert assistance of a consultant who knows the program inside and out. The Housing Affordability Fund grant made this application possible, and considering the consultant's 90% success rate, I think it is highly likely we will see the positive results on the ground in the next year. Then the next OTR we have is really on behalf of the county for county membership dues. Last year, I brought to you a whole series of organizations that the county's a member of that kind of passes through our department. They're organizations who hadn't seen increases for very many years, and they proposed several year ramp up of funding. This is the second year of that ramp up of funding, specifically for the Cuga Lake Watershed Intermunicipal Organization and for Southern Tier 8 Regional Board. And then the last one is from the Environmental Management Council. They frequently do request small amount of funding. This year they're requesting $2,000 to continue their work on their flagship program, which is their Unique Natural Areas program, to make sure it's up to date with the latest information. And that is it for the planning side of the budget. Would you like to pause there or go right into tourism?
I will leave it up to you. I think that we can just do the tourism and then we can all ask all of our questions.
All right. Thank you. So we'll jump into the 2023 tourism program budget. So for those of you I haven't yet talked to about the tourism program budget, we're a unique element in the county budget program as we forecast both revenues and expenses, and we have a target of 0. The revenues come through the hotel room occupancy tax, which is a tax that guests in our county pay when they stay in hotels, motels, and bed and breakfasts, and short-term rentals as well. And it's set at 5%. That fund goes to the overall tourism program, which we'll talk about here in a moment. The revenue forecast for 2023 is $3,200,000, and it does not include any ARPA funding this year. So that's a really good sign that we are moving past the COVID impacts on our tourism sector, at least financially, if not in all regards. The expenses are split between marketing and product development. We use a formula, the 60-40 formula, where 60% of our available program revenues go towards marketing and 40% go toward product development. Marketing is basically 3 main functions, the largest of which is our Ithaca-Tompkins County Convention and Visitors Bureau, which does destination marketing for the county, operates 2 visitor centers, and provides group sales for meetings and tour operators looking to come to Ithaca and Tompkins County. Product development is a bit more complex. We have 12 different activities, including a variety of grants, the Downtown Ambassadors, Community Arts Partnership, Community Beautification, and support for the conference center, all wrapped up into that figure there. So there's a lot going on in product development, and a lot of different activities we're trying to push to make our destination more interesting and viable as a place for people to come. One important note on the revenue side is that while we are supporting the conference center through room tax, we will not see any revenue attributed to it in 2023 because it won't open until 2024. So this is probably the last time I'll do this budget without having to talk about the conference center as a generator of room tax. Another thing that's impacting us this in 2023 is a shift from of our reserve policy. So in February, the Strategic Tourism Planning Board set a target of 10% of room tax to hold in reserve. And this is up from its previous target of 5%. So in order to meet that reserve figure, we are aiming to deposit $92,000 to meet that goal for 2023. And this is partly in response to COVID and the fact that we ran out of reserves very quickly in that situation. So you'll see in the recommended budget, the grand totals there are all zero, as our target is zero. The reason the revenues and expenditures look a little different is that this also applies the county's 10% tax administration that is taken off of the top there. So you'll see there's a change also from 23 to 22, an increase there. This reflects, I think, general optimism that the situation with regard to tourism is getting better. We're seeing that, as our monthly and quarterly hotel reports come in, that nightly rates are continuing to increase and occupancy is at or beyond where it was in 2019. So we're certainly seeing some strong figures from our hotels and all corners of the hospitality sector. In terms of over target requests, there are two that are included in your budget for consideration. And I'll go through them one at a time here. The top one listed here, titled Supporting Communities with Local Arts Programming, was recommended by the Strategic Tourism Planning Board back in June. And this would be basically a supplement to the efforts that the Community Arts Partnership runs through its grants called statewide community re-grants, or used to be called decentralization grants. And these are basically very small grants to local arts organizations to do performances for a variety of diverse audiences, all corners of the county. Generally, I think these grants currently run around $1,400 a piece in terms of the average that they've done over the last few years. And this would allow this would supplement that to allow those grants to be larger or to be spread to more places around the county. So that's one OTR that the Strategic Tourism Planning Board has recommended. The other one, titled Reallocated 10% Room Tax Funding, gets a bit complicated. So this one is a proposal to shift the expenses associated with my position's salary and fringe from the main tourism program budget into the county 10% budget. Doing so would allow some of the programs within the tourism program to have more funding, particularly to support activities related to the conference center and other sundry goals. However, it would have the impact of reducing the amount of unallocated revenue generated by hotel room occupancy tax. So this was a proposal STPB made in June. As you can see, it was not recommended. So this was restructured here as an OTR to allow the legislature the opportunity to debate, discuss, and make a decision on this at this point. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up and open up for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, do we have questions for Katie or Nick? I see Lee has a question, Rich has a question. Mike, was that a hand? Okay.
Probably a question for Lisa. The net effect of these over target requests on the county budget, would they be coming out of revenues from the county rather than the room tax?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Okay, and I was just wondering if you'd reconsidered the structuring at all to handle those at some point, and that can be an open-ended question. And the other question I had was just a general one for Katie. Many years went by where the county did not pay dues or participate with the Southern Tier Regional Planning Board, and I know we had some difficulties with that and some cooperative programs back years ago in another department I was involved in. Do you feel you're getting the value received now for those dues?
Yeah, I really do. We've rejoined in 2017 and totally new leadership, a complete reorganization. It's not even called Southern Tier East anymore. It's Southern Tier 8. And I feel like they do really focus on helping the the counties and helping the people within the region. So I feel like it's a great organization now.
Pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lee. We've got Rich, Mike Lane, Annie, and Randy.
Yeah, I was curious about the $60,000 for broadband. Have we applied? I couldn't remember what you said there. Have we applied for any grants this year with the 60,000 we put in the 22 budget?
The 60,000 in the 22 budget was just contracted this August. So no, we haven't applied for funding with that money. We were waiting for the state to finish their mapping work so that we could move forward with what they had done, because they did a significant effort statewide. And honestly, the state has been getting all their ducks in a row in terms of their funding opportunities. And I think it's going to position us in a really good position, because they are, I believe, going to be requiring broadband plans before you can access the broadband money that's going to flow through the state. And I think what we're working on with the consultant could turn that into a plan that would make us eligible to hop right on that money.
Okay, so you're not spending the 22 money, but you want it available for 23.
We are spending the 22 money. We're under contract with them. That money will go into next year. It's just that our understanding is applying for particularly some of these federal grants can cost a lot of money. And so, you know, we have staff that can help, but they're very technical. And so there might be a portion of it that we would need technical assistance for. So we just wanted to have the money available so we could jump right on that if an opportunity arises.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Okay, Mike.
Nick, you started to talk a little bit about the conference center, and I'm wondering, are we likely to get requests for marketing funding or any kind of operational funding from this center once it gets established?
I can't rule out that possibility, but you know, we currently have we're in the third year of a 30-year agreement to support the city in its development operation of the conference center, and eligible expenses would include operation and marketing, just as you mentioned there. So yeah, so we are currently doing that.
Doing what? I'm sorry.
Supporting the operation and marketing through their funding agreement with the city.
Are they doing operations or marketing at this point?
Well, it's still under construction, so no. They're marketing it to prospective buyer or prospective meetings, but operating has not started yet.
Okay, so there is some marketing going on. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Annie.
Thank you, Katie and Nick, for the presentation. So a couple questions on the ST8 membership dues. It looks like they're going up from 12,000 to 14,400, and then anticipated dues of 16,000. Is there anything you can say? I mean, it just seems like a pretty big increase. I know it seems like we're getting more value out of it with the restructuring of their organization, but I just want to know if you can say anything about the increases.
Sure. So they have a identified need for more staffing to help apply for grant funding for the region. That's their goal, is to hire someone who can be focused on grant writing. I will say they looked back on their dues structure, and they had not raised dues since I believe it was 1970. So they felt like it was time, and they wanted to ask for enough money to fund a position.
Okay, thank you. Grant writing is, of course, very important, and as is catching up from the 1970s. So then regarding the OTR and tourism, I had a question about number 13, the CAP Community Arts Partnership. So this was a program also going back to the 1970s. And so is this the first time that it has been asked of the county? I guess this is a two-parter. And has this been discussed to possibly use any funds from room tax to support this?
My understanding is the first time this has been requested from the county. And this was discussed in the county, in the budget meeting when we were preparing the 2023 room tax budget, but didn't make the cut for that. So, yeah.
Okay, just one last comment, just to myself almost, or to my fellow legislators. Just looking at some of this, with this being able to support, more diverse geographically, especially rural areas, ethnically diverse areas, economically challenged areas. So this is something that I'll be looking at and talking to my fellow legislators about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have Randy and then Shauna.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I support any OTR or expense you have related to grant writing, especially for smaller entities that don't know how. The quality of a grant writer is equal to the success of getting grants. So I support that any way you can. The only question I have is related to tourism, and it has to do with the 22 budget. And I think you explained to me before, Nick, that the federal aid was that ARPA fund from 20, but it wasn't used, correct?
There was ARPA funding in our 2022 budget. Yeah.
But you didn't end up using that because.
Oh, no, we've used it. We're in the process of using it currently.
Okay, but isn't your revenue way up for 2022 for your hotel?
It is, which means we'll be bringing the unspent money into the 2023 budget when we know how much that is.
Okay, and that would go into your reserve?
Yep.
Okay, and you still need to put in $92,000 to get there?
It depends on where we come out at the end of 2022. Yeah. Well, 92,000, whether it's coming from unspent funding from 2022 or funding in 2023. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, Shauna, you said that you were okay?
I'm set. Thank you.
All right, Veronica.
Thank you. For the community arts partnership thing, can you give some examples of what sorts of things get funded with that?
Yeah.
And like how this, I guess, like tripling the amount of money would change it?
Yeah, sure. I can give a few examples. I know a lot of the programming has happened with at rural libraries that often apply for this. And they do performances, usually youth-oriented programming, sometimes, focused on seniors. They have funded activities at Southside and GIAC. I'm aware of, a variety of musical performances and, small theatrical productions they've done. There's a wide range. They're really very locally focused, which is why it didn't make the cut for tourism. It's not something that someone from outside of the community that's directly involved is necessarily going to go out of their way to attend or be a part of. It's typically, I think in terms of what the impact would be if US was increased, you would have more funding available to fund artists and the support staff who help make those types of performances and activities possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Well, I do have a question because I'm a little confused about this 10% reserve. 10% of what? I mean, if $92,000 is enough to get you to 10%, what's 100%?
100%. It's the the annual room tax collection for the year. So what our forecast for 3.3 million, and 10% of that would be 330,000. So we have a current balance, and the 92,000 will
so
give us
you
to
just
our
supplement every year to make sure you keep it at that 10%.
And the reason it's an impact this year is because it changed from 5% to 10%.
Okay,
So,
thanks, Nick.
yeah.
I knew there was probably a reasonable
yeah.
explanation somewhere. All right, if there are no more questions, thank you, Katie. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Megan and Joan, for standing by. And we will move on now to cooperative extension, and you can find that presentation on page 5-6 of your budget book. Hi.
Hello. Hi, everyone. All righty. Here we go. I'll share my screen. Make sure it all works.
Would you like to introduce yourself? Because I don't think some of us know you.
Sure. Hold on. So, okay, that was part of my first slide though, but I'll introduce myself first. So here I am. I've been here 2 months. I'm just thrilled to have Dan and Randy here. So I've gotten to work with them a lot. But I'd like to just thank you for all the support for all the years that you've worked with Extension. So I have, Extension's not new to me. I've been around since 1984 in Extension. I started right out of college. When I moved back here, I started at the Enfield School with the school gardens. So that's kind of cool. My kids have all gone through the Enfield School. I have 3 of them. Now they're grown, and 2 have returned because Tompkins County is a great place to raise families and to live. After that, I went up to campus and I actually worked in the Department of Horticulture with Chris Watkins, who's now the Cooperative Extension Director. So we did a couple of publications together and our offices were right next door. So this is back in the early, or the latest 90s. So after that, I worked actually in Extension with Dan Klein, nodding. So the 2 of us did some early day beautification and children's gardening and all that. So that was a lot of fun. I then I was the first director of the children's garden, but I wasn't there that long. I had a child with some health concerns, so I stopped work for a year, but then I worked at United Way for a little over 10 years. Went back on campus, and then this opportunity presented itself, and I'm fortunate that the group, the volunteer staff have entrusted me with this transition period. So that's kind of the long story, very short. So here I am 2 months in. So you will hear, I will take all your questions. You probably will hear a little bit of, I'll get back to you, but I will get back to you with any answers. I have jumped in deep, and especially in the finance, but I'm proud to work for all the volunteers, the staff, the campus, the county, the leadership at the county, to support the many, many, many programs of cooperative extension. The focus is to help the community. So that brings a lot of warmth to my heart. So it's a lot of hard work. And it's always hard when an organization goes through transition. So I'm just here trying to work hard and focus on the prize of helping the community. That's good. Now I'll share my screen.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. You'll have to let me know. Let's see here. Let me go back. Share my screen. Let me open it up. Sorry for the delay. Oops, hold on. Here we go. Sorry about that. Got a little discombobulated there. Okay. All righty. So I was going to have you look at this cool word mashup. Well, I said that intro, but one of the really exciting things is that and a good timely thing for Extension is that they went through a strategic planning process last year. And it's good to kind of just see what all the good work is to help make the mission to help individuals, families, and communities thrive, live well, and reach their potential in Tompkins County. So they have some really great, hold on, let's see. There we go. So out of that wonderful hard work, they came up with some strategic plans and goals. So really the presentation today is just kind of summarizing some of the work that's happened, what's going on, a little bit of budget, and but it's great that they accomplished this 22 to 24 strategic planning process. They identified goals and themes, 3 main goals, and some of you may have seen this presentation with 5 themes to transform into a more equitable, anti-racist, diverse, and inclusive organization, to address their the racial equity issues. So some of the things in that section have started to become operationalized. So I have to keep saying we, I'm new here. We've developed an integrated equity, diversity, and inclusion goals into all programs, begun that process. And we have a team, we've developed a team of staff and then a board team to lead this effort. It's growing and expanding. The second key element is to strengthen internal structures to be more equitable, effective, transparent, and supportive. So that's the organizational theme, organizational develop to strengthen that. So this is where I'm really living a lot right now in the administrative support. And so one of the keys that elements of this is to improve the diversity of funding streams, to improve communication internally, externally. We were starting to work on that, which is good, and to provide professional development opportunities. Whoops, sorry. Well, let's see if I can go back. Whoops, wrong way. Sorry, guys. My cursor's not working well. There we go. And then finally, the third goal is to educate and to support systemic changes that improve conditions in which people grow, learn, live, work, and age in Tompkins County. So the themes that all weave around this are climate change, economic justice, and social determinants of health. So one process or one of the focus is to focus on climate change resiliency, work on food systems, and then physical, emotional, mental health, and well-being of the community, and to mobilize resources to help address all of those items. All right, so here's the overall budgeted revenue. The budget's a little over $9 million, and it comes from so many different sources. So we have transfers from restricted or temporary restricted funds that have been, received, and then they're restricted. We undesignate them and move them into operations. We have a little bit of federal funds, a lot of New York State funds with contracts and benefits and fringe from the state. And program revenue, mostly permanent pursuits and various classes, some of the youth programs. And then contributions, rental income, investment earnings. You'll see a little tiny blue sliver, that's investment earnings. I bundled it in together with the 2% of the other. This is an opportunity for us to start to look for diversifying revenue and look for some fundraising opportunities. Other grants and contracts from anywhere, local funders, regional, state, national funders. And then there's the strength of the county, which is about 18%. And that is just such a wonderful support. And it also gives us the ability to go for these other fundings because we have such a nice solid core of county funding. Let's see. So what we do, and I won't go too long with this, but this is there's just so much, and we have the youth development, which we have primitive pursuits, rural youth services, 4-H. Last year, even with all of the challenges, it was one of our primitive pursuits best years. When I first started, it was like the beginning of camp season, and I went into the room and I asked into the primitive pursuits offices, and I said, you know, how many are registered? They had 1,400 young people registered, so it was just really exciting to hear. We have the commercial ag and forestry, and we've received recently a 2-year agroforestry grant of $477,000, and we're working on solar on agricultural land, so trying to do some innovative things there. We have the composting program, community beautification, of course, and this year 10,000 pounds of yard and food scraps did not go into the waste system, so that's good. Community development, we work on different locations within the county to help with strategic planning of projects, and this also includes our reentry program. Energy efficiency, renewable energy, we've got the Way to Go program, which Dwight just spoke about. The local foods, we are working with expanding the variety, access, appreciation, and trying to encourage future farmers. So then there's nutrition and health, education, especially working with households with low income, and then parenting, education, family support, and working with families and households in stress. So I have these a little backwards. Everyone's put their over target first, but the over target requests that we have this year are, first off, the association administrative capacity building. So this would provide support to increase finance capacity and build systems to meet requirements. This is super important, and especially now that I'm really deep into the financial health and well-being of the organization, learning to assess what we have going on. In the capacity, there's a lot going on, and I think with the various funding streams and some of the reporting, it would be critical to increase the capacity of our finance person. We have a wonderful new system across the associations that just came on board in March for all of our financial planning, financial data record keeping. And so I think it helps with transparency. It helps with really being able to do some budget projections and all sorts of great slicing and dicing of all of the financial situation. But it does take a lot of time as well, and that help would be great. Then we have another one for 4-H youth services van purchase. We have, as you can see in the summary, there were 3 vans, now there's 2, and 1 is really not good. So we're hoping that we had to retire 1. And so we would love to have that. We transport at least 2,000 youth annually. And for the other van, we've begun to look for some other donations and processes to try to improve that, because that is also hurting. And then finally, this is year 2 of the Student Resource Navigator. And this is a collaboration with the community-based, let me grab my last little note here. Community-based organization with Cayuga Health Partners, and they're working with OBGYN patients and also pre-health students volunteering. It's been a great, effective program, and so they're looking to continue. So there's always ongoing evaluation of the data to inform recommendations of how to improve community health, well-being, and access to services. So here are the budgets that were provided by the county. Just kind of summarizing the recommended OTRs. And again, here are the details for the requests with the administrative capacity, Student Resource Navigator, year 2 of the 3-year, and then the van. So again, thank you very much. I can stop sharing my screen. And
Thank you,
do you have
Meg.
any questions?
And welcome to CCE. I guess you're pretty new with this. All right, Amanda has a question for you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Nice to meet you, Meg. So 2 things. So asking for a confirmation, but of something I think I know, but the majority of the target that the county gives to CCE goes to your operating budget. And then there's most of the money you get from the state and grants, that goes to specific projects. Is that correct?
Well, of the county budget or the OTRs?
The county, the general, not the OTRs, the target.
Well, it is, I think last year, 174,000 of it went to administration, yes. But there is quite a bit of, I guess, staffing as well, if you pull that into administration.
Right.
Or if you use the umbrella of program, staffing for program, it goes to program. But quite a bit of program funding as well.
Okay. And then a question about OTR 55, the administrative capacity building. So you're talking about a specific position, a new position that would work in the finance department?
Yes.
Okay. And so I guess technically this is a multi-year it's just not quite written that way. So, and with the idea, I assume of over the next couple of years, you'd be finding grants to fulfill that other portion.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, I've got Randy, Shauna, and then Annie.
Yes, thank you, Meg. On the student coordinator OTR, it seems to make sense. It would be helpful to know the success from that program and more detail on it in the future as to what you got for that. But on the finance system that you're using, I think it's called Acumatica, is that completely funded by CC administration, or you have to pay a fee for that?
We do have to pay a fee.
Okay. Ballpark, how much is a lot
I
of money?
believe, I'll have to get back to you. I want to say the right number. I have 3 fees floating in my head because there are different fees from extension on campus that we pay. We just paid one that I just approved. So let me get back to you with that.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Shauna?
Thank you. Amanda and I were on the board, I guess it's been a little over a year now. And one thing that we constantly talked about was the true strategic plan for cooperative extension. And I know you mentioned it in your presentation, but I would be interested in hearing, perhaps I think they report to PDEC, a little bit more about where you're headed as far as the vision of the organization. Would that be a possibility?
To give you that right now, thank you for at least giving me the option to get back to you. I do have the plan, the strategic plan up. I studied it I'm going to give you a half an answer now, and then I'd love to follow up with the plan itself, and then some of the prioritized items that are trying to become operationalized first with timelines. But I do want to say that when I thought about applying for this job, one of the things I needed to do was look at the strategic plan and see how viable it might be. I've worked a lot with nonprofits over many, many, many years. And sometimes strategic plans or positioning papers are just overwhelming. And when I looked at this, it was put together in such a way that you could mobilize on certain action items in a fairly decent time, set some goals. There's some short wins, some longer wins. So when I looked at it, there were some things I thought, oh, we could do that. I could help do that, or that could get done. I've seen that done in 3 months or 6 months. So I think that that was a big thing for me to look at before I even applied for this job. So to that point, I think it's a functioning tool. I think it has measurable, attainable goals. And I think it's broken up in enough bite-sized pieces that you can get some things accomplished. I'll send it back out. And to have it at such a nice level of detail and to pick and choose. And the staff and volunteers have already begun to prioritize various elements of it. And we have a tracking tool that, like a big Gantt chart type of thing where we're looking at it. So I believe that it can get done, but I'll have to provide it for you, the detail.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Meg, if you could just send that to our clerk, then she could distribute it to all of us, and those of us who are interested can delve into whatever depth we care to go.
Excellent. Could I just follow up briefly in that one of the greatest things that's happened in the past 6 months or so is that everything is accessible on the website, all meeting, everything's accessible. Things are a lot more transparent and things are available. So it's there too, but I will send it.
Okay, thank you. And if anybody's really impatient, they can go home tonight and find it on your website. All righty. Annie.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Meg. And I'm not sure if you know this, but I'm the chair of the Planning, Development, and Environmental Quality Committee. And so we were trying to work out with your predecessor once a year to come to our committee and, talk about, your strategic plan, and some of the things that Shauna and Amanda mentioned, like where does, most of the money go? We're especially the county portion. So we're not, I know for me, I'm not expecting all those answers tonight, but it would be something that you could, we'd like you to do more in depth once a year to come to our committee. You're welcome to come more than once, if there's things you want to talk about. But but we can touch base and then, we can invite all the legislators to attend or they can watch it, remotely. So we can work that out, if you're open to that.
I would love to do that. And part of my introduction also was I meant to say, I want to meet one-on-one and just really get to know. I know you're all busy, so we probably don't have time, but I think that's the perfect solution for that. And we could come, and I'd love to do it sooner than later. I don't have a lot of time. I have a 2-year appointment and time is ticking along very quickly.
Yeah, the next couple of months might be ideal, but yeah, we could talk about that. Then
Thank
I
you.
also wanted to say, I appreciate, the OTR regarding the finance, addressing financial issues, especially transparency. And so that's something that I'm sure a lot of us are happy to see. I think that will help a lot with our relationship with CCE. So thank you for making that a priority.
Thank you. I think the importance of to meet the needs of all the families and children, and everybody involved, the financials have to be tight and sharp, clear.
Thank you. All right, if there are no more questions, and I don't see any, thank you, Meg. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And I'm sure we'll be seeing you again soon. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Take care.
You too. Okay, so our next presenter will be John Negley, Director of our Soil and Water Conservation District. And you can find that presentation starting on page 5-27 of your budget book. Good evening, John.
Good evening, everybody. I know that there's some new faces here that are on the legislature and probably have never met me. I'm John Negley. I'm the district manager for the Tompkins Soil and Water District. I've been with the Soil and Water District for Tompkins County since 2005. I started as a technician there and then turned over to the director position in 2013. So some of you I've gone through this budget presentation in the past, and some of you it's the first time around. So I will jump right into it here and just get my presentation up. Okay. Can people see my my screen here?
Well, right now it says resume slideshow, John. So I think maybe technical difficulties.
All right, let me get a different screen here.
It was up momentarily.
There we go. Is that any better?
Yes, sir. That's perfect.
All right. Sorry, I was on the wrong slideshow there. So this is the 2023 budget for the Tompkins Soil and Water District. For those of you who don't know, we have offices up in the second floor of the Tompkins County Highway Department. We share space up there with county highway and facilities and weights and measures. So we thank you for that space up there. It's a great space to have for our small staff. We have a staff of about 7 people on staff. It varies when we have summer interns, and it can go from 6 to 9 pretty rapidly throughout the year. All right, so I'm just going to give a brief overview of what we're doing throughout the year and what we've done in 2021. This budget cycle, we are not asking for any OTRs or over target requests, so you can kind of sit back and listen to this. Yeah, just to review some of the things that we're working on as a soil and water district, we're supported not only by county appropriation, but also through state aid grants, either through state sources, local sources, or federal sources. We can pull a variety of different grants into the county. And a lot of our grants and contracts that we work with are with private residences, farmers, local municipalities to implement projects on the ground throughout the community related to a variety of different program areas. So you see there water quality and land use planning. We have technical staff that will go out and work with private landowners, farmers, municipal highway departments, code enforcement officers, a lot of permitting assistance, technical assistance related to what people can do with their stream banks, what they can do with their farms around wetland areas, water quality around the lake shores. So we've had a lot of projects and planning that's happened in 2021. You can see the numbers there. We also get into watershed management planning. We work with our partners with planning department, the Water Resources Council, Cooperative Extension, a whole host of other different partners within the county and regionally to look at the watershed as a watershed wide scale. And we've done that through our HAB action plan. So some of you have probably heard of the term harmful algae blooms in Cuba Lake. We work a lot with that action plan that's created by DEC. Our ag environmental management plan, that is kind of the meat and potatoes of how we work with farmers across the county. That's a state-run program and state-funded program. Also working with the Owasco Lake Watershed 9-element plan. You've probably heard a press release just recently of the Owasco Lake Watershed 9E plan that was approved and adopted and released as of Friday last week by the DEC. So that will drive a lot of regulatory framework and priorities that we'll have within our soil and water district in the coming years. Along with that, the Cuba Lake total maximum daily load. It's also another, all of these are pollution diets, so to speak, or pollution budgets of how much phosphorus can get into our water bodies, mainly the lakes of Owasco and Cuba, and then the tributaries that run to the Susquehanna River and eventually down to the Chesapeake Bay. So all of our county is now under these pollution budgets and diets for regulating how much phosphorus, mostly it's phosphorus. The Chesapeake Bay is for nitrates also. So that just drives a lot of what we're working on. Last year, we worked with the hazard mitigation plan and sat on the steering committee for that, looking at a lot of different hazards related to, I was just looking out my window and saw the rain. We have not had a lot of it this year. So both the droughts and the floods, we work a lot with our local partners, especially highway departments during those, especially flooding events, and help them to manage streams, culvert repair. And then also we have a position on the Water Resource Council, which is a direct communication tool to all of you to be able to have some say into what happens with water resources in the county and gives you some advice on some of that as a council. We also have our Tompkins County Stormwater Coalition, which is a permitted regulatory authority. It's called the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System Permit through DEC. So your city of Ithaca and bordering towns and villages are part of that MS4 region that have special permit requirements for water quality. So we work with the Stormwater Coalition, helping them with technical assistance and providing assistance to municipalities for any of their work in terms of mostly code enforcement officers being able to review stormwater pollution plans, mostly for construction sites or home developments. So that's kind of our technical assistance side. Project implementation, we get a lot, like I said, we get a lot of state aid, state funding, federal funding that will come in and help us with project implementation. So kind of just some of the pictures that you see here from going clockwise from the top left there, ag waste storage systems on farms, being able to store manure and nutrient waste from farms during those times when it's really wet or over winter times, being able to apply those on the fields during times when the plants are going to be able to take them up. That's been a big program of ours in the past and still is. We have a lot of grants that flow through our district for those. The next picture there, the top right, the cover cropping, you'll see a lot of this throughout the county of about this time of year when crops are being pulled off for harvest. We'll come in and we have funding sources to be able to have farmers go in and replant those before winter sets in with what's called a cover crop, being able to lock that soil in place, bind the nutrients, and overall improve water quality that will flow into our lakes and drinking water reservoirs. Bottom right there is a picture of our stream bank stabilization projects that we have. This is a project out in Salmon Creek with the town of Lansing. Larger project, one of our larger projects. You might have seen it going along Salmon Creek Road. There's always a bit of hard armoring aspects to these stream projects, and then coming in and doing riparian buffers with more woody vegetation and helping some of the animal life that's in the streams. And then our hydro seeding program there, the bottom left picture, just another program that you might see in the community where we'll kind of put a green slime on the ditches, but it's a seed and paper mulch, what we call hydro seeding. So getting into some more of the numbers of where we are, this is just kind of a graph showing the county appropriations over the past 10 years. So we've slowly increased our county appropriation requests. Most notably, you'll see in 2020 there we had a major spike, and then a subsequent decrease with the pandemic and the economic slowdown and budget cuts to our district. So we've kind of maintained from where we were at 2020. It would be nice to get back up to that 2020 pre-pandemic level, but that's something we'll have to do over time in step progression. And like I said, this year we've had a big influx of state aid, our Environmental Protection Fund, which we get most of our state aid for operations, came in with another $100 million to the overall Environmental Protection Fund from New York State. So that really helped out with our budget and state aid to the districts. So just kind of comparison from our budget to some of our other adjacent county budgets that also receive county appropriations. In 2010, we were the lowest county appropriation, and now we are the second highest within our 6 adjacent counties. So thank you for supporting this local district. The county appropriation has been super helpful, and also the housing that we get. And that just bodes well into being able to go after more grants, get more projects on the ground with local sponsors. And then I show this usually every year. Some of you probably remember as legislators, we had a pretty precipitous decline in our net position and fund balance as a soil and water district back in 2011, 2012. We've recovered from that. I was hoping to have our 2021 net position from our auditors this year, but they're still kind of working on that. So next year you'll see 2021's, but we're maintaining there at a pretty healthy fund balance. And I think that just bodes well to being able to have a good operating budget and getting projects on the landscape. So this graph, I'll sit here for a little bit. The income and expense of the district over the course of the last 2 years. The income side, the green bars and the gray bars, that is our county appropriation, and then our state aid that comes in, and that mostly funds our operational expense. Some staffing, most of our administrative staffing, and then any type of overhead expenses. We don't pay for rent, but any other type of expense that we may have, vehicles, that type of thing. The rest of our budget, the red and brown bars there, are state funding grants, projects and programs that we get through the Environmental Protection Fund mostly, that fund on the ground conservation projects. So for every dollar that the county spends, you're usually getting $2 to $3 back in revenue from the state to the county, to private landowners, to municipalities, which just helps the tax base. The 2021, 2022, 2023. So you can kind of see expenses in 2022 and 2023 go down there on the project implementation side. A lot of that is related to landowner match and cash match to projects. The economic climate that we've seen the past couple of years, people are starting to tighten their belts of what they'll do. And when it comes to conservation projects, usually we're, a last in line type of thing, especially for farms where it's like, I gotta, make a bottom line. If they're a dairy producer, they're really operating on margins of what they can make off of their milk production. And so the first thing that they'll usually cut are things like cover cropping or things that are good things that they want to do, but just don't have the expenses to afford a match. So hopefully if the economy turns around, we'll see those grant expenses come back up, but we have the income coming in. So it's just a matter of being able to get those grants out to those landowners and working with them to find good ways to cost share that match locally, because those state grants usually have a cost share expense that they want to see at least 10 to 25% of the grant being locally bound up with local funds to the project, along with the state funding. So our recommended budget, we have $346,165 this year. That's a $10,000 increase that's recommended from county administration in their budget. We did not ask for any OTRs this year. So it's a 3% change from last year's budget. Just another slide saying there are no over target requests. And that's it for me. I tried to make it short and sweet. So if you have questions, please let me know.
Thanks, John. Before we take any questions, and for the benefit of some of our newer members, John's much too modest. That long climb out of that precipitous ditch that the Soil and Water Conservation District was in is completely due to John's excellent management of the Soil and Water Conservation District. And it's been a privilege for me to serve on that board of directors for these years. So do I have questions? Mike Lane.
Yep, you're exactly right. And we're very proud of the Soil and Water Conservation staff and management for where you've gotten us to. I was thrilled to hear what you told us a few minutes ago, that our support, which has been not where it should have been for this department for many years, has now climbed in comparison with other counties. So you said, I think, second. That's pretty great. And I'm glad that's happening. The one question I had was, I think it was last year or the year before, you were trying to hire an engineer. Mm-hmm. And apparently that didn't work out. I wondered what's gone on with that?
Yeah, so as Deb can attest to, it's been a challenge. We've had it out to advertisement multiple times. We've had some applicants that have come in and interviewed, and we've offered, and they've declined based mostly on salary and their ability outside of private firms. So we are competing with larger outside consulting firms that really can offer benefits. And even talking with some of those outside consulting firms, they're having difficulty hiring engineers in this field. And I'm coming to the realization that there's not enough effort within the, I would say the high school to maybe college age of having soil and water districts and the civil environmental engineering field, knowing that there's jobs out here in this field. So that's been a challenge. We have worked out agreements with private consulting firms. Barton and Judas have been on retainer for us the last 2 years, filling in the gaps that we would have had for a full-time engineer on staff. So that county appropriation that we had for a full-time engineer has gone into that retainer for a private consulting firm to come in and help us with getting the engineering done. But it's a unique challenge that I didn't think that we would have in trying to find this engineer. And I've talked with highways. I know they were looking for an engineer. Multiple different agencies, and it's a challenge for some reason to be able to find these engineers and offer them what they want to make, which is 6-figure plus salaries usually. So it's been a challenge.
Well, thanks for the update.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. Anyone else? Okay, I think I can wish you a pleasant evening.
All right.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening.
Okay, so now we can move on to finance, which invaded us in large numbers during John's presentation.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Okay, Rick, take it away.
Bribe the finance office.
Oh, did you bring candy? Is that a bribe?
Not me.
Okay, you can find Rick's presentation starting on page 4-75 of your budget book.
Thank you for hearing our presentation tonight. Drew already has our slides all ready to go. We're going to be sharing with you the Treasury Division, the Purchasing Division, and the Accounting and Payroll Division and the county's Finance Department. Yes, we'll start off with the good news. Due to the Director of Finance retiring in November of 2022, we have made some changes to our initial budget, which we did submit on time, but then about a week or two later, we had to tear it up and start over and make a few changes to it to help you in the transition as the legislature seeks a Director of Finance to replace me. That will happen at the end of November. And the good news is we've had all our vacancies that were open for 3-4 years. Prior to that time, they've all been filled and have stayed filled since June of this year. So I'm proud of the staff that we have. I'll be introducing our 4 management staff that have descended upon you tonight to help break some legs and make this happen on our behalf. But The major initiatives that we have been undergoing the last couple of years and into the next year, the first one is staff training and development. With this newer finance department staff, there's always a need for training, cross-training. A lot of that we can do with webinars. We don't have to travel as much as you are full aware of. The State Comptroller's Office offers a lot of free webinars and good training for both budget staff and for finance staff members. We also are in the process of updating and revising more of our internal procedures as well as some administrative policies. So that system and process documentation is something that we're working on all the time. Software is a big issue. Some of it has been changed out recently when we talk about our payroll software. Another product that we will be having to change probably within the next year or two, and you've heard a lot of talk about getting budgeting software, but we need to be looking at new financial reporting software also. That includes all of what finance does, from treasury accounting and revenue collections with taxes, right through to bidding and quoting and purchasing software, our general ledger and financial reporting software, everything except for payroll, we'll be looking at, and it could take a year or two till we find that final solution, but we know that eFinance Plus, which the county has been with forever. I don't know how long they've been with it, but quite a long time before I came on board. But that is sunsetting over the next year or two, and we have to find new software to take its place. And that's being worked on at the same time that we're looking at fixes for help our budgeting software. We also are looking at the possibility of new P-card software, purchasing card software, and we have to continue to improve that new UKG payroll system that we got plugged into effective this past November of 2021. There's still some glitches and there's still some building that needs to be done to make that report better, to make it work smoother, to have training with all departments. And so that's a joint project that involves ITS, HR, and our payroll staff, and with our software improvements that are needed with that new UKG software system. Successes. I've been very fortunate to be able to report that in all the years since I've been here that we always have had clean audits, which you've just received within the last month or so. Unqualified opinion from our auditors. Each year we have a Moody's bond rating as a result of us floating bonds and bands every year. Even if you didn't float bonds and bands, you would still be doing a Moody's rating anyway in the fall of the year. But since we do a bond every single year, we get rated every year, and we have the AA1 bond rating, the highest of any New York State county government. And we're very fortunate to have that with the interest rate environment now with rates creeping upward. It's fortunate that you can still get a good deal with the lowest interest rate that's available, at least in this particular market. Second bullet item there speaks to something that Drew had been working on off and on over many months, had a very intense IRS audit. We didn't speak a lot about it. Didn't want to make anything more of it than what it really was, but they went back, I don't know how many years it was, but 4 years looking at not anything else other than 1099s and W-9s. And that's why we shine such a steady and constant searchlight upon all departments that are hiring folks that were at one time county employees. We often work with county administration and HR to make sure that we're always calling an employee, and a contractual worker. And the county got audited on this once quite a few years ago. I want to say 15 years ago. I believe it was in the 90s. before I came here, and might have been in the early 2000s, but they got written up pretty heavily for not actually having the right classification on every single, and that, for those of you might not know exactly what I'm talking about, you can choose to pay a person either as an employee with full benefits or as a contractual servant with a 1099, and they have to pay their own benefits basically. And either way is acceptable, but there are strict rules that have to be applied that the IRS governs this over. And going forward, I hope and wish that we maintain that very strong searchlight looking at each and every case, so that in this particular audit, we came out of it okay, looking good, and there were no problems. There were some inconsistencies. Most of them were with different systems that were being used in various different parts of the county, such as social services had a large system that was not part of our system. And a lot of documentation we couldn't find because they went back many, many years. But we came out of that with a good report and no penalties. So we're very proud of that. And that fourth bullet item is we always have an increase in the volume or transaction numbers that go up with low error rates. And it's hard to keep that positive all the time because we do get complaints. There's oftentimes departments issue negative remarks about why finance is arguing with this, or why finance is not supporting that idea, or why we can't do it our way instead of this way. And a lot of times we just have to go back and insist upon them looking at the IRS code, looking at the New York state laws, looking at auditor opinions, and looking at generally accepted accounting principles and auditing standards. Because we don't expect the departments to have that high level of financial background or acumen coming forward. And we have to be the finance people that govern and teach all the other departments what's acceptable and what's not. And, that's a role that sometimes you get a kind of a negative luster around you when you're the people, when people call on you, sometimes have to tell them no and show them a different way to go about it. But with that all said, we've had very low error rates in the work that we've produced. To conclude this part of the presentation, we're responsible to these customers, not the kind of customers other departments have where you're dealing with the public, but we're dealing with internal customers like other county departments. And that includes 29 departments, 800 employees on payroll, nearly 36,000 tax parcels that we manage, 4,000 vendors. We track nearly 200,000 transactions throughout any given year. And so that's the normal workload for your finance department. We do it with a small staff, and we stay on top of bids, bonds, purchases, payments, and everything in between. And now I'm going to turn it over, next slide, I'm going to do this one too. I wanted to get out of this one, and Lisa wouldn't do it. No, just kidding. By the way, the folks that have come over here tonight, I want to introduce to you. Here, going counterclockwise, is Darrell Tuttle. He's the newest member of our staff division. He's our division of accounting, manager of accounting services, director of accounting services, something in accounting.
He
works
wears
with numbers.
many hats, apparently.
Number one bean counter. Darrell Tuttle. Next to him is Andrew Brayman. You all know him because he sits in for me with a lot of committee meetings and some of the legislator meetings. He's the deputy director of finance. Next to him is Lisa Schott, treasury manager. She's the one responsible. A lot of you have been asking questions about how do we do foreclosures and how do we do auctions and where are our procedures? She's got it all. She's got it all, and she's helped us put that together. We're updating those procedures right now that we'll share with everybody in the next few weeks so that you're comfortable in knowing that we have all the bases covered on how to do foreclosures, how to contact property owners, how to do a tax foreclosure auction. We have most of it written up, but we need to update it a little bit before we present it for prime time. And then next to her, Joyce Burke is our purchasing manager. And it rounds out the team. We're going to be adding a staff member to assist Joyce because she's basically in a division right now of one person. And we're wanting and needing to add help for her in that, because it's an awful big county for there just to be one full-time employee. And that's Joyce. So thank you all for coming here tonight. Lisa came on her vacation because I guess she just didn't have anything else to do that was more exciting than this. But thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that. Now we get into the numbers. Now the big numbers, as you can see, our target, third column from the left, you can see our target expenditures was at 1.6 million. And with the added OTRs that we're asking for this year, it's going to bring our new total for 2023 up to almost $2 million. That's where you see the 1.6 plus 379 equals almost $2 million in the 2023 recommended column. That's the expenditure side. We do have some revenues offsetting that. Those revenues have also come up, not as much as the expenditures, but we have a total change in revenues that's almost $43,000 to the positive. And so the bottom line for the grand total, instead of a budget that's 1.3 million dollars, we're now bringing forth to the legislature a budget that's 1.63 million dollars for the whole finance part. That's all divisions added together. So we have a 29% increase in expenditures, 13% increase in revenue, and 34% increase in the net local share portion of it. So that's, if you look at page 75 in your booklet, that's where our finance department budget starts, and those numbers relate to the finance department as a whole. And then the next thing we like to present, I'm going to let Daryl take over for this. He's going to be presenting our full-time equivalent. So Daryl, would you like to share some information on this?
Thank you for the introduction, Rick. I'm going to talk really quickly about full-time equivalents, also normally abbreviated as FTEs. In 2021 and 2022, we budgeted 13 FTEs. In order to address workload issues and other reasons that will be addressed in the next slide a little further, we are recommending an additional 3 FTEs, which will bring us to a total of 16. Those 3 FTEs will be an accountant in the accounting division, which is my division, a purchasing specialist in the purchasing division, and another position called HR payroll administrator, which will be a split position between ITS, HR, and finance. Now I'm going to hand it over to Drew to finish off the slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Good evening, everyone. So I'll touch on our over target requests that we'll get to. There we go. And we have a total of 7 over target requests. The first one at the top, you'll see that Rick mentioned we went on a new payroll software this past year that actually started in 2020. You've had Greg Potter come and present many times on that. And Ruby is here too, and she can tell you how much fun and excitement we've been having with that. So we're going to have a person take over. Greg had someone in ITS that had formerly managed an internal payroll software that also had a lot of the HR on it. That person retired in 2018. And she's come back, thankfully, to help us. She's been a great help, but she actually wants to retire. So we worked with Greg and Ruby, and somehow I think we drew straws and finance got this in our budget. So, but it is going to be a HR, ITS, and payroll combined position to really support this database, do all the logistical systems work behind it and all of that. The next item,
Oh, Drew?
yes,
And this call can all be found on page 80 in your booklet there, if you're
Yes,
following
page
along.
80.
The complete write-up on this particular position is on page 80, priority number 1.
yep, sorry about that. And priority 2, also on page 80, is another staffing position, as Darrow mentioned. We get a lot of requests from departments. We have a lot of requirements coming from other funders and organizations that oversee our processes. So we're looking to add a staff position. As Rick alluded to, we have hundreds of thousands of transactions we manage each year. Seems to grow each year. We're also challenged. We'd like to get out and help the departments more. There's been a lot of changeover with staffing at departments, and folks who have done the finance roles there for decades sometimes, they retire. I don't know why people like to retire, but Rick said he's retiring too. So it's good that we could get out to the departments, and we just don't have the staff, the manpower to free up someone to get out there and work with them. So that would be one of our goals with this person, is to get more of the grunt work done, where purchasing could go out, payroll could go out, Darryl or myself could go out and talk to departments and lead them through things. If you flip over to page 81, there's a couple OTRs on that page. The OTR number 3 on top of page 81 is $50,000, just in anticipation that we'll probably need some technical expertise as Rick leaves, whether that's professional, contractual, additional audit time with the auditors, consulting time, additional training. It could be a number of things. So it's really a placeholder. We haven't sat down and planned that out yet, but we worked with Lisa Holmes and Norma and said, here's what we think we could use. Let's put a placeholder in so we aren't caught, short next year. So we have $50,000 there. If we won't use it, we'll just leave it there. The next item on page 81 is software services and computer related. We're looking for $21,000 there. A lot of our computer software that we have has an annual maintenance fee. Those go up every year. Most years we can absorb it. Every few years we need to come back to the legislature and say, hey, let's bump this line up. We've been, moving from this line to this line. We actually 2 years ago saw increases up around 10% on that line item and absorb it. So this year will get us back in line with those. Flipping over to page 82, there's a couple OTRs there. This is what Rick mentioned, the FTE for purchasing specialist. Right now we have Joyce, who you just met, as our purchasing manager. And we have a consultant that we contract with that's been with us, just over a year, I think. And he's committed through next year already with us. Has a lot of experience. He's retired from New York State, SUNY programs. So he's brought a wealth of expertise to us. This will enable us to allow him to fully retire and get Joyce more independent on that. And again, hopefully get out to departments and help them. We've seen an uptick of bids. I don't know if you recall, Joyce, where we're at, over 40, I think, so far this year, approaching 50. I think 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when we didn't have anyone in purchasing, we did maybe 20 bids the whole year. And we're on track to do probably 70 this year. So bids take a lot of time and a lot of work, and we do a lot of work in between those. So purchasing specialists will help that. Purchasing staffing, this was in our budget, this $32,000. This is the contractual position that I mentioned. I see that as a multi-year, but it'll be going down year over year as we get our staff up and trained on that. So that's contractual personnel. I know that recommended OTR says 0, but that is the 32,000 on the left and supported by ARPA funds on that is what county administration is thankfully recommending. So The last item on page 83, there's a lot of details on it, even though it's a small dollar amount of just under $3,800. Really, a lot of this is related to the increase in the Amazon Prime account. They do a lot for us and a lot of tracking, and we moved all departments. When we started looking at this as COVID hit, a lot of departments went to Amazon to do their purchasing, do a lot of their price shopping, and we had 7 or 8, 9, 10 Prime accounts across the county. We consolidated everybody under one, and the shipping saving alone pays for the Amazon Prime, but the actual fee comes from our budget itself. Also, we have some P-card tracking expenses in there and a few other memberships and stuff in there. So that's it on our OTRs, and I'll turn it back over to Rick.
We'll open it up to questions and, oh, that was supposed to be Louis, my dog, but that I didn't have a shot of Louis's pose. So this is just his understudy, but in honor of Louis. But we'll take questions on any part of the budget that legislature might have.
Does anyone have questions for Rick? Randy, and then Sean.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I'm sure I've got some of these questions wrong. But just an observation, I'm just looking at your budget from 2020 at 60% more. So that just seems like a lot to me, but I can't justify or not justify it. But I have a question on the OTR for finance, and it must be a question for Lisa on how to read this form. So which ones are you recommending? All of them?
Yes, however, not all of them are with target funding.
Somewhere with the ARPA funding, I saw that one. Okay, that answers my question.
Shauna?
Yeah, I had a question in regards to the purchasing specialist and the OTR for that. Because whenever it was presented last year, the idea was that we would hire a consultant in order to train the purchasing manager. And it's been a year now, and it appears that we're hiring support for the purchasing manager. And I mean, I think the assumption was that whenever the contractor was hired, that it was going to be a short-term service that was going to be provided. And so I guess I'm questioning why we're seeing a second year of that.
So you're asking not about the OTR for the purchasing specialist, but the OTR number 72 to continue the consulting
Yeah, that's right.
relationship.
Or a
Thank
little
you.
bit of both. Huh? Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't have a problem because I understand that we're seeing more need and we need more support in purchasing. I guess I'm just questioning why we're going to continue with the contractor if we have both of those roles filled.
Well, we don't have both of those roles filled. That's the crux
We
of the
will
matter.
shortly, though.
It was never intended, I don't think it was ever sold that we were only going to have the contractual person for just 1 year. That's news to me. I didn't ever.
Well, that was my understanding, that there was a one-year contract.
That I think maybe when we put the budget together, it might have been together with not target funding. It might have been, I'm not sure how we funded it at that time. But the idea, without getting into the weeds on whether it was 1 year or 2 years or even 3 years, we didn't have any purchasing staff for over 2 years. I felt drastically behind. We finally were able to find somebody that we thought would make a great purchasing manager. And that's why we hired Joyce. Joyce came in with a lot of great qualities and some experience, but we needed to find somebody that had the higher level experience, top down, that could help train Joyce. And that's why we went out and we found this consultant. In fact, that person was in the running for taking the position that Joyce was being hired for, but then would not accept it as a full-time position, was not interested in becoming an employee. He was, and turned that job down basically. And then when we hired Joyce, We went back and this person was willing to come back and help train and revise our purchasing policies and procedures and help train all of our staff really on New York State purchasing and procurement procedures because we hadn't had a professional in that role for a couple of years. And so that's worked out nicely and it's really built us to the place to where we can pretty much handle the workload that's there. We've updated a lot of procedures and we still have some more training and more procedural work to do. And as long as there's work there that's available and that needs to be done, it's a little bit more than one person can do. And so that's why that person has been continued on in the capacity. And it's not always the same workload each week. It's not like 40 hours a week. It's only 24 hours a week and sometimes not even that much. So the person that comes to us and works with Joyce on a lot of these bids and quotes and extraneous work that purchasing has to do, that's basically about a 24-hour-a-week job. And so that's being diminished over time. And that's why this amount that we put in next year is less. And we're hoping not to even spend that much. So we're looking full throttle if we go at an even keel and hiring this purchasing specialist, which would be subservient to Joyce's position. I think we all knew that our goal in the end product was to finally have a division of 2 people.
Yes.
I think that was agreed upon going way back to Dooley, when Dooley used to put that in every year as an OTR when we didn't even recommend it. We didn't even have it in our budget. She insisted. And finally, having 2 people in the purchasing division that are county employees is where you need to be and where we're aiming to get to. And we hopefully will be able to achieve that by mid-year next time with everything else that is going on. And so that I hope that answers your question, so that that contractual person is still here to help fill the gaps until we have 2 solid full-time purchasing people at work for Tompkins County.
Okay. And then my second question, in looking at OTR 36, we have regular pay 28,000, fringes 12. That seems really low. And that's not even paying living wage. So I'm just wondering if that's accurate.
Yeah, I calculated that, dividing it by 52 and then dividing that by 35 and got something like $15.44 an hour.
Pay, is that a whole year? Is that part of the year?
Yeah, what's happening with the purchasing specialists is we're actually moving some of the wages from other lines to cover that line. So that's not the full salary and benefits that you see there.
Plugging the gap.
Yeah, so we're just plugging the gap with the remainder of it. So what we had in there was part of the consultant fees, and as we juggled things around and said, really, that's a short-term OTR for a couple of years. Let's move everything where it should be. So
that will hit target this year or in 2023. However, target for 2024 is going to be the full salary amount.
we've moved other things in there to cover the remainder of that salary and fringe. So, yeah, we had other target amounts already there that weren't there.
So what would be the full salary for this position?
I think it was it around mid 50s? Yeah, 50, 56, someplace in there.
And so the fringes were also being covered?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I don't see any. So the invading force can now retreat.
Good job. Thank you all for hearing our presentation. I really wanted to make sure, since I'll be leaving in a couple of months, I really want to make sure that you got comfortable working with the staff and got a real good warm and fuzzy on who to reach out to. For these are the folks that will be filling a lot of the holes when I depart. So get to know them and understand their lingo, and they'll try to understand yours. And I found them to be, I haven't worked with all of them all that long, Darrell being the newest one here, but I have really found them to be an exceptional and enjoyable staff to work with. And I appreciate their hard work helping to put this before you tonight.
Mike?
I was going to ask, have you got space for these new people?
Actually, we do, yes. That one position, which is the HR IT shared position for the payroll system, that one is not going to be housed in the second floor of accounting where we are. But the other two, we do have space for, yes.
Where is that person going to be housed?
The HR ITS payroll
yeah.
person, we don't know.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
I think maybe up on Brown Road, there's a pretty big building up there, but well, no, I don't know.
All right, thank you.
The main reason that came forth to you, and this was not of our making, but with Ruby and with Greg and with Lisa, even after our budget was submitted, they came back and said, look, we're not going to have this person working in ITS anymore. You guys need to fund some position somewhere. So it was a flip of a coin, like Drew said. I don't know how it got in our budget, but it was a flip of the coin whether it was going to stay in ITS or in Ruby's budget. But it ended up in
Remains
our.
to be
we
seen
just
whether
wanted-
you
we
won or
wanted it to-
lost.
We wanted it before the legislature, so it didn't get lost.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. And it was nice meeting you. Okay, HR, and I see Ruby and Larry are here. And you can find their presentation starting at section 4-104 of your budget book. Okay, it's a good example to follow. Are you sure you're safe here with just two of you?
Well, Heather's up there.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I didn't know if we were bringing casts of thousands.
We had this issue last year, remember?
The worst of us.
What are we waiting for?
We're waiting to my screen actually shares. There was something in that.
Well, we're getting a nice sound effect anyway.
Yeah. Fran. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm here with Larry, our recruitment administrator, and Heather Buck, who's on the screen, who's our HR program system and program administrator, whatever that title is. We're happy to be here on tonight just to give you a brief look at our 2023 budget request. And as you can see, I used this opportunity to kind of curry some favor here with some pictures, especially that one right there. Down there. But these are photos from some of the activities that HR has been involved in this year. Everything from the 25-year dinner to Civil Service 101 with municipalities, to tours of the airport, tours of the jail. Then we have the employee picnic. So these are just a few of the photos so you can see who the people are that deal with our employees every single day. And I'm happy to say I'm quite proud of my team. They're good people. Okay. And next. We're going right to the 3 slides that are most important. Our recommended budget for 2023. As you can see, we've gone from the actual budget from the 22 adopted of 1,412,000. Our 2023 target is 1,369,000, but then we have several over target requests, 71,426, making a total recommended budget for 2023 of 1,440,000, which is a 2% increase from last year. Full-time equivalents, 2022, we had 11.5. As you know, our deputy resigned, so I made the choice to not fill that position this year, but to realign our staff with their current job duties and then put them at the appropriate levels. So we use that lapse funding for that. And going forward in 2023, we will not be filling, well, we will be filling the vacant deputy position, but it will be an internal promotion. So we're actually getting rid of 1 position. Didn't want to, but I felt that that was more important to make sure the current staff is at the level that they should be at. And maybe when things are better, we'll come back and say, hey, I need this and I need this. But I'm appreciative of the staff that we have and their ability just to be cross-trained and to do what needs to be done to get our work done. So our FTEs, 10.5 for 2023. Over target requests, there are 4. The first one is the primary, the HR over target request. And we're asking for $20,000 to be included in our target, which will cover the increase for the civil service mandates. Because of the Professional Policing Act of 2021, we now have to, all of our law enforcement candidates have to be given an in-person psychological evaluation. We were using a written standard, which maybe it costs maybe $135 per candidate. Now with the in-person psychological evaluation, it's roughly $400 per person. So there's an increase in that. We're also still catching up on all of the civil service exams that were rescheduled from 2020. So there's a market increase in that line. So that's why we're asking for $20,000 to be included in our target for that. Also, our examination fees come out of that line. Tompkins County does not charge examination fees to applicants. The county bears the expense because there are increased civil service exams and increased requirements. That's why we're asking for $20,000 there. Over target request number 2 is a multi-year request. This is the 2nd year for the culturally responsive training that came as a result of the reimagining. This is used for law enforcement culturally responsive training. Everything from de-escalation to bias, implicit bias, this is where that funding is coming from, and it's already been committed. This is the 2nd year of 3-year program.
Ruby, is that other local government line, is that coming from the city? Okay, thank you. It's in the book.
Yeah, I don't have a book.
Okay.
Yes. And then there's OTR number 3, priority number 3, which is also a product of a reimagining, which is our culturally responsive recruitment strategy for law enforcement. And that's $10,000 for this year. The last over target request is an increase to the livable wage for the one position in the office that's currently below livable wage. That's $1,426, and that title is an information aid. And that is all we have.
Well, that was nicely crisp. Thank you, Ruby. Does anybody have questions for Ruby? Rich John?
Just for clarity on page 105, the purple sheet that was added, or if I have the color right, you're showing 11.5, but it's really 10.5.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. We had to have a correction with the FTEs.
Mike?
Just wondered, the law enforcement officers would have to have the psychology tests. Does that include probation officers as well? Just like
Does not.
deputies and
It's
corrections
law
officers.
enforcement, it's some corrections, and we also do some for emergency dispatch, but it's primarily the deputy sheriff's corrections officer times.
Thank you.
Okay, did I miss anybody? Randy?
Yes, thank you. Ruby, I applaud you for a reduction in staff. I ran into Dan Winch, and he reminded me that employee creep is a big threat, so I just thought I'd share it with everybody. So thank you for that. I like the way you worked that out, so I just want to share that. I think it's wise to take care of the people that you have in your department and build them up. So thank you for doing that.
Anybody else?
Now, that's not to say in a couple of years, I won't come back and say, Randy, I need.
I'm not sure what's more dangerous, employee creep or creepy employees. Never mind. Okay, Annie, I see your hand.
Thank you. So when that deputy position gets filled, will you be then backfilling the person internally? That
No.
position?
We eliminated the position the person will be coming from so that she can fill the deputy role.
Okay, I got you. Thank you so much.
Hey, anybody else? Annie, is your hand still up or is that an old? Okay. Wow, guys. So we are finished 15 minutes early.
That's never happened.
That's never happened. Congratulations. You are the crispiest of crispy critters and I really appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Thanks, Deb.
Yeah.